It's up to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 p.m. on the 28th of May. We're going to begin the Planning Commission meeting for Social Circle. We do have a full agenda. We are missing a few members, but we have a quorum with Travis Parr, Mr. Mullins, and Ms. Brown, and myself. So the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting from April 23rd, have those that are here had an opportunity to review those minutes? All right. Anyone have any notes or corrections that need to be made? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as posted.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes that's presented before us as read.
Ms. Ignore, thank you so much. All those, or is there a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion passes. First item is a variance request for 2049 Emily Drive. Requesting a variance from section 8.3.4.A.1 of the UDC to allow for a commercial vehicle to be parked in residential zoning classification. Ashley, would you carry us through this application, please?
Absolutely. So, as you said, the request is for commercial vehicle parking in R15, and the nearby and adjacent property is also R15, and there is some PUD zoning nearby because this parcel backs up to Town Park. The variance request is from section 8.3.4.A.1 of the city's Unified Development Code to allow for the parking of a commercial vehicle in a residentially zoned district. The use of the vehicle is for a home occupation business. The applicant has stated that the vehicle is utilized as part of their home occupation or home-based business. However, section 3.7.7.C.10 of the UDC identifies which types of vehicles may be utilized and parked on the premises. And section 8.3.4.A.1 of the UDC states that no commercial vehicle shall be parked in a residentially zoned district. There are some exemptions of that. But code enforcement has been attempting to work with the property owners regarding these code violations concerning this parking since November of 2023. And these ordinances are being enforced whenever we get complaints about it, and usually people find a place to either move their commercial vehicle, or they locate it in the rear of their property or screen it, making it fall under one of those exemptions. And we have not seen any variance applied for nor issued with regard to the parking of commercial vehicles since we amended this ordinance. I don't know if you guys, I think Scott and Signora, you guys were on the Planning Commission when this ordinance came through about commercial vehicle parking in residential areas and doing it in the side and rear if it's screened and all that kind of stuff. Currently, the driveway on which the vehicle has been parked has kind of caved in. There appears to be no serious infrastructure damage in the public right-of-way as of yet. The applicant does not have a current business license either on file for their home occupation. And I just want to draw your attention to some of the staff analysis that took place. The things that we have to look at is general consistency. The variance does not appear to be consistent with the intent of the Unified Development Code, and the use is harmful in terms of infrastructure. So this type of truck traffic isn't meant to go down residential streets, and that can kind of put a detriment on these roads that were intended for residential trip averages and not necessarily commercial truck traffic. The special conditions, there really aren't any special conditions that are unique to this land or this particular property. It appears that the special circumstances are financial in nature due to unforeseen life events that have occurred. So there aren't really any grade issues or floodplain issues or things of that nature on this specific property. And then we also have to look at literal interpretation of the code. Literal interpretation of the provisions outlined within the UDC would not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other property owners within the same zoning district, nor would interpretation result in unnecessary or undue hardship. Staff recommends denial of the request for a variance from section 8.3.4.A.1 of the city's UDC that would allow for a commercial vehicle to be parked in a residentially zoned district. We also have an alternative if you guys would like to offer a recommendation of approval. We would recommend the following conditions. Vehicle must be enclosed in a structure or fencing located in the rear of the yard and not visible from any public street or right-of-way. The applicant is responsible for infrastructure cracks at the entrance of their driveway within the public right-of-way, and the applicant must obtain a home occupational business license within 30 days of approval.
Thank you, Ashley. I do have a few questions to this application. I don't know if any other members do. If the requested variance was approved, obviously we make the recommendation, city council makes the decision. But if it were approved by city council, would that not be given special privilege to this one request, since it does not appear any of those criteria for hardship exist?
That is also addressed in the staff analysis in y'all's packets in the staff report. I believe it is under
E1?
E. So that's packet page 22. Approving the variance would confer special privilege on the applicant, as there are no other commercial vehicles currently residing on residentially zoned lots that are not specified as exempt under the provisions of section 8.3.4.2 of the UDC. So not only is there no specific conditions on the land that are hindering this from happening, it would also grant special privilege.
And the street in Corby Creek, they're alligatored pretty bad currently. This may have been a discussion when you shared with other department heads about this request. Was there any mention from the Public Works Department about street maintenance, or where, when the street will be maintained or resurfaced, if there's a plan of action for that? I didn't see it in here. I don't know if you recalled from your notes.
I do not recall off the top of my head. If you give me one moment, I can look that up.
Yeah, I did see the other department's correspondence on this,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't very favorable to from the staff's review for the city. Are there any other questions of Ashley before we open up the public hearing?
Yeah, I have a question. The vehicle is causing damage, some damage. The more that you travel, the worse it'll get.
I went out there to see the site, and there is some damage on the driveway, but that's probably a question better answered by the applicant. That could have been there before the truck. I don't know.
Yeah, so there is currently damage on the driveway, and that was what the Roads and Bridges comments were. The comment was specifically if the driveway entrance cracks, the applicant would be responsible for repairing them in the right of way. The city wouldn't take that on.
Yeah, I see, from the comments from the police chief were included in our packets. Currently, fire chief, Ken Zadell, is also the code enforcement supervisor.
Correct.
And he does identify code sections in which code enforcement has attempted compliance at this location. Okay. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Before the public hearing begins, just some brief rules. The applicant will have a total of 10 minutes to come up to the podium, state their name, and speak. The applicant may reserve some time for rebuttal should he or she wish to do so. After the applicant's presentation, we'll call up those who have signed up to speak in favor of the request. Those who would like to speak in favor of the request will have a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each, but a total. Then we'll call upon those who would like to speak in opposition. Upon closing the public hearing, again, the let me explain. Those that would like to speak in opposition that are signed up will have a total of 10 minutes, not each, but total. If the applicant has any time for rebuttal, at that time, the applicant can choose to use the remainder of his or her time. Please address all comments to the planning commission up front, not to any members of the public. Please refrain from using any profanity or lashing out at any specific commission member should they have any questions. With that said, we'll call upon the applicant, Mr. McKern.
Hi, I'm Heather McKern. This is my husband, Kevin McKern. We own the business at 2049 Emily Drive. We have in the past tried to come in compliance. Our original request was to, the way that our house situates, we already have a side driveway to, elongate that into the backyard. And we have a, 8-foot, 9-foot privacy fence on one side to also extend that to the other side. And the way that our house sits, that would be down, we sit on a ranch on a basement, so it would be down, and we have a ton of green space between us and the other neighborhood, so it would not, from what we can tell, would not be in sight. Unfortunately, because of the size of the truck, it was over 1.5 tons, that wasn't even an option to come into compliance, because it really was about the size of the truck. Now, the truck does not require a CDL. It is rated, how many pounds less?
It's actually rated at 25,999.
Just under.
Just under CDL, so I'm not required to have a CDL for it. Just to give my little bit of peace, I want my wife to talk because I'm obviously a wreck. But the reason I need this at my house is because of what's inside. I cannot park this outside of my house because it has a lot of expensive product inside. So that's why I'm here. Don't want to move, lived here the longest I've ever lived anywhere. I was born and raised in Lilburn, Gwinnett County. We got married, lived in Beaufort for a while. I know this kind of doesn't have to do with a lot of it, but this town is special. My yard is special. A lot of people know me by my front lawn. But the main thing, of course, with all of this is my livelihood. At the current time, I just had a very bad accident 2 months ago, which I saw one of the pictures flip up there, but I rolled my brand new $310,000 tool truck, and I've obviously invested heavily into this town and heavily into my business, just to be able to be a successful tax owner and home person. And obviously, that's all I guess I need to say.
So
If y'all have any questions.
that kind of leads us to the financial hardship. We heard the recommendations. We would love to be able to do that right now. The unfortunate part is now we have a financial hardship of loss of business. This truck is now in the shop until, we hope, July, but maybe not. So we've had a significant loss of business. So to invest in doing that right now, that is our ultimate goal. And I would love to say we can do that in a certain time period, but we don't know from a financial standpoint what we could say. That has always been our ultimate goal, to get it parked back
To
behind
move
the house.
business to the back of the
Correct.
house. We also think, in all honesty, I've done a lot of talking to my friends. I have a lot of developer friends. I've done a lot of talking, and I was nervous about putting that much more money into my house because I don't know if y'all have looked at my house. I have a lot of money in my house with the pool, the shop, and all the things I've done. I've made my house home. I obviously don't want to just leave. But that was, I don't even know where I was going, but the biggest thing was, I don't know.
That's why he doesn't get to talk. He goes off in rabbit trails.
Okay.
So that kind of handles the financial hardship. As far as the driveway, there was already some damage, and it's actually in the middle of the driveway where we had the side driveway poured. So it's kind of a connection point. There was some damage there before the truck was even there. So obviously that's our responsibility.
Okay.
Is there anything else? I don't know if I've explained myself well enough, but hopefully I have.
That's fine. Are there any questions for the applicant? So the goal before the accident was to eventually park the vehicle in their rear yard.
Plan,
Yeah.
just to give you a briefing of the plan. I just put a 6-foot white vinyl privacy on the right side. I had to kind of do it in stages because as I've been gone really well, but that is my plan. I wanted to get permission from everybody, but clear all my trees out, make it nice, resort style with the business in the back hidden. Definitely will hide the truck. I will do everything to be in code because I have been a rule follower my whole life and I believe in rules. So that's my plan. 2 to 3 years, because I priced it, it's looking 70 to 100,000. I think my commitment I've shown with my house and the way I keep things, I'm very committed to doing the right thing and keeping things right in this town.
Brings me to my next question. You've heard me say earlier maybe that we're a recommending body. The decision lies with city council.
Sure.
If city council were to approve your request, obviously their approval before you could park the vehicle there, if it had conditions, those conditions would have to be in place before the vehicle could come back to the house. Is that something that you would be able to do?
From a financial standpoint, not now, with the loss of business we've just had in the
Okay.
last couple of months, unfortunately.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for the applicant. Does any member do? Thank you. You had 6 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. So at this time, we'll call for those who would like to speak in favor. I've got one signed up, Scotty Sangster.
Good evening, panel. I'm Scotty Sangster. I live 2 houses down from Heather and Kevin. I'm here tonight on their behalf, representing them. Just to let you know, the neighborhood is a great neighborhood. We do have a couple of commercial vehicles that have been parked in the neighborhood, and there hasn't been any issues there in the past. The vehicle that Kevin has is a single axle vehicle. It's not like a tractor trailer type vehicle where it would take up so much room we'd have to park it out on the street. No complaints from me as a neighbor. I think Kevin and Heather have added a tremendous amount of value to the neighborhood and to the city as well. I think if they were quote unquote forced out or have to sell their house, I think that would be would be tough on them, especially right now in this hardship they're in. The driveway that he's got comes off the side, and y'all mentioned the crack. When Kevin put that pool in, cement trucks had to come in there, and I think, honestly, I think that crack is a result from the cement truck, because when I built my pool behind my house, the same year he built his, I got a crack in my driveway. It's minor, but it's not worth spending $1,000 or so to fix it. But I'm just here on their behalf to let y'all know I don't have a problem with it, and I've talked to some of the neighbors. They don't have a problem with it. That's his livelihood. But if his house was junky, front yard had 2 or 3 vehicles in front of it, I would be up here standing on a 5-gallon bucket telling you need to force him out. We don't need neighbors like that. But he's a great neighbor, and I'm here to support him, and I hope the council will support it as well, the city council. Thank you.
All right. We don't have any other, anyone signed up to speak for, nor anyone signed up to speak against. You guys have 6 minutes and 15 seconds if you would like to continue speaking. You don't have to if you don't want to.
I think we've said all we can say.
Okay. Well, at this time, we'll close the public hearing. Planning Commission members, thoughts, concerns, discussion? You saw the staff recommendation. Didn't appear that the applicant met the criteria, so the staff could not give a positive recommendation on the applicant's behalf. What are y'all's thoughts?
I know how it is when it's your livelihood.
Yeah, I agree. There are a few things that concern me about the vehicle parking, but even if the city council approves their request with conditions, they wouldn't be able to do the conditions. That's a bit of a concern, that I have. The other concern I have is it'd be given special privilege when there's not specific conditions identified within the UDC. So that's kind of another concern I have. And each variance request stands on its own merit, based on the property itself. But that's some of the concerns that I look at this case. I understand the financial hardship that the applicants are facing, especially with the loss of business and with this truck. And I understand 100% the items that are in that truck are very expensive, and it's for him not to be able to keep them at his house could be a detriment to his business if they were stored at a commercial location or at a facility that allows, like a self-storage that allows truck parking. That's kind of invitation, and when it's not parked at his house. So I do understand that. But that's why we're here, is to hear these cases, to hear from the public, and make that recommendation. Travis, Curtis, thoughts?
It's a tough one
It is.
because of I've been in these kind of shoes before myself. But like you're saying, though, would not be able to get it into compliance and we grant it, then this would be in everybody's neighborhood.
Very real possibility.
Yeah, that's tough. It's really, really tough.
Curtis?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, if there's no other discussion, Chair will entertain a motion. And remember, the staff recommendation was based on the ordinance itself. I can't make the recommendation.
Yeah, it's really tough on this one because I mean, like I said, they say there's no way they can come into compliance. Can't afford to do other things, so I guess we're going to have to go with what staff recommends and go with denial.
Is that
So make a motion that we go with denial.
okay?
Being
So,
they can't even meet the other requirements if we wanted to. And maybe something could change between now and when they go see council.
yeah.
And have a plan to bring it more in line.
Yeah, I agree. So is that a motion
That
to,
is a motion.
okay, so there's a motion on the floor to recommend to city council to deny the variance request. Is there a second? All right, there's a second. No other discussion? Chair, all those in favor of the motion to deny, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, thank you. Again, we're just a recommending body. If you heard Mr. Parr, it may be beneficial to try to come up with a plan between now and city council and present your plan at city council. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is a request to rezone from residential district 15 to business at 162 West Hightower Trail. Ashley, would you introduce this item for us, please?
Absolutely. So this request is to rezone from R15 to business. The present use is residential, but there's currently no one living there, and I don't think there's been anyone living there for quite some time. The proposed use is kind of a multi-tenant commercial, retail, and office space. The nearby and adjacent zoning, as you guys can see from your packets and the screens, is business. There is some R15 still around it, and there is some office institutional, which is those blue pieces. The character of this area has been identified as Central Historic, which does include business as an appropriate zoning designation. So it is in line with our future land use map. The developer would also need to address the drainage issues on the property because there's currently a drain pipe in the rear of the property that goes across the road and it drains onto West High Tower. There was not a parking plan or traffic plan included as a part of the application. So the developer, if this request was approved, would need to address and meet parking requirements as outlined within our UDC. And it would also have to include the ADA requirements as well, so Americans with Disabilities Act. The proposal is for this dwelling to be converted into three spaces of operation. So the developer would need to reconfigure the water and sewer for the location to include the addition of new meters and new taps, because section 11-29 of the city's code of ordinances states that you can only have one customer per meter. So each tenant would be required to have their own meter, unless the city, waived that. The change in occupancy will also require the structure to meet a new set of codes and standards, not just in the building code, but also with the fire code, because it would no longer fall under a residential use. So that's things like tenant separation and all that kind of good stuff based off of the uses within the building. I also want to draw your attention in the staff analysis to B1, which talks about compatibility and if there would be any adverse effect on the existing use or usability of nearby or adjacent property. There is a concern that with no traffic or parking plan in place, there could be an increase in traffic congestion during the drop-off and pickup times of the neighboring schools. So we did want to call that out in our staff report and just remind you guys that this is a heavily congested area. But that's really the only thing I want to draw your attention to in the staff analysis on the record. The staff recommendation for this is to recommend approval of the rezone request from R15 to business with the following conditions. Number one, drainage issues would have to be addressed and approved by the Public Works Director prior to any COs being issued, so there would not be any certificates of occupancy. No one would be able to occupy the building until that gets done. And number two, plumbing for the sewage is to be reconfigured to include the addition of meters and taps at the cost of the developer, or the developer must receive written permission from the city to have one meter for multiple customers prior to any COs being issued.
Ashley, could you put the zoning map back up, please? Thank you. Looking at the map and seeing as the request is consistent with the future land use, was that the primary reason behind staff's recommendation?
That is correct, and the other reasoning being that if this does get rezoned to business and multiple tenants were to occupy it, it would have to meet the more strenuous building and fire codes for multi-tenant commercial uses. So with the request, it may not end up being 3 tenants because I don't know if it's feasible in that house without starting from scratch.
And it's in the historic district.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's also, if you look in your packets, you have multiple maps in there. There is one labeled the overlay map. It's also within the downtown corridor overlay, which is, we haven't really seen a lot of that since we passed the UDC. So that also has any exterior work and stuff. It has a lot more strenuous architectural standards in there to keep with the historic character of the area.
For any commercial use that would go in there, they would be required to provide on-site parking, correct?
I believe
They wouldn't be exempt because they don't have any on-street parking or anything like that?
so. We have parking maximums now in
Yep.
the UDC. However, I believe the fire code or ADA
It's
requires
gonna require
at least
2, yeah.
yeah, 2, I think, is the number that we arrived at on the accessible parking.
The driveway that leads to the back of the school and the church, is that I'm looking on the map, it appears to be a named public street?
Clark Street.
Yeah, is that,
I believe that is a public street.
Okay.
I would have to confirm that, but I believe it is a public street. This property is addressed off of West Hightower because of the driveway location.
okay, yeah,
Isn't that a one-way street?
it is.
I believe so, yeah.
And that's what made me think it was a private driveway.
I think we have right away there, but it's not a lot.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
So where would the parking for this particular place be?
That was not provided in the site plan for this request. But like I said, that would, if the developer could configure it, then it would be addressed during the development part. So they would have to do some site improvements before we could allow them to occupy the building in any way for commercial tenants.
Okay.
Does that make sense for everybody?
At this time, the applicant was not able to be here, but she has an agent is here, Miss Debbie Connor Smith, so we'll open up the public hearing. Ms. Smith, if you want to come up and.
I am Debbie Connor Smith, and, yeah, the applicant bought this property with the intentions of either renting it out residential or eventually, some commercial avenues that would open up, especially with the school that's gonna be moving and some things might be happening with, school property. And I think her intentions right now is to just go ahead and get it rezoned so she can start, entertaining, avenues and clients that would work there. And we had thought that it would be perfect for like an attorney's office, a mortgage office, or real estate office, or florist shop, or a boutique, but there's a lot of walking traffic already. We've got the library past it, we've got the post office right next door, it's right off the square, and I think that's the intention. There's nobody lined up to go in it, and there's a lot of legwork and things that would have to be addressed and done before you could actually put a tenant in it. But this was just the first step that we had to take.
Do you know if Ms. Sorrow intends to put a residential tenant back in it?
She may, but I think, I'm not sure. I would think, I'm not sure.
You know where my next question's going, right?
Yeah, if it's a permitted use.
Yeah. And here's my concern.
Okay,
It's zoned R15 currently.
Yes.
The request is to change the zoning to business.
right.
Business may not allow a resident to live there.
I think
So
it does.
if it's rezoned
Mhm.
and she decides that it's not worth putting the money in to make this a non-residential property, or I won't be able to get the rents out of it that it's gonna take to recoup my investment, she may not be able to put a resident in there to live as a tenant, and that's what Ashley's looking up now.
I think our zoning says that you can do residential or a business, I believe.
You would have to do single family attached, so it would have to be a duplex or greater at that point in
Not-
business.
Okay,
So not single-family detached as it is
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
okay. And
That's the details, and that's why the subject matter expert was looking that up for us. Okay.
right.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you so much. You have 7 minutes remaining. At this time, we don't have anyone signed up to speak in favor, but we do have a few signed up to speak in opposition. I'll call on Adrian Ogletree.
Good evening. I'm a homeowner down the street, about 4 doors down at 259 West Hightower. I've been here 37 years. I am very concerned about this domino effect in the historic district, because if you look at Lawrenceville, Loganville, Gainesville, Covington, it just has, there's only one street in Covington that actually has people living in the old houses. They've all gone lawyer, business, insurance offices, that CPAs, that kind of thing. And so we're known as Social Circle, Georgia's greatest little town, and that's on our monikers of our websites and things. How if we take out, and people come to Social Circle because of the well, which is missing, which is another whole discussion. They come for the well, they come to walk around and look at these old homes, which are great because people, real humans, still live and breathe in these houses. They're not just Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of places. The house that's there has been a disaster zone for years and years and years, because every time it rains, you literally could take a canoe out there in the backyard and go paddling around. The traffic, I can't even nowadays get out of my driveway. My granddaughter just graduated, and she would have anxiety attacks every morning just trying to turn right out of her driveway to go all the way around to get to the high school. She tried originally to do left-hand turns, and that was just too dangerous. I understand the school's going to be moved in a couple of years, maybe. So it's very important. And I also have looked, I'm into precedents, and I just hate to see the domino effect. I wrote a list of 10 homes on this street between here and the roundabout that the people on West Hightower are most likely going to, this sounds terrible to say, die or move into a nursing home or something within the next 5 to 10 years. We're one of the youngest families on the street. There are several people have bought. Scott Simpkins and Ricky Quintero are taking Nancy Baldwin's house and have gotten Historic Preservation Award for it. And they haven't even had a chance to finish it and get a tenant in there. But there are like 10 people. And so if this business that's an older home, it's not super historic, it's not as old as some of the other smaller homes. What's going to happen with that for the rest of the street? Are we all going to end up in 10 years being lawyers' offices and nobody really lives there? It loses its character when every time you make it an office, you've got to have the ADA handicap parking and you have to pave things. So then you're going to have no green grass front yards anymore. You're going to have business yards. That building, it just is a bad idea. There's new people that have moved in, new families. When our neighbor wanted to put a swimming pool in, she had to jump through an amazing amount of hoops. And so she's just got a brand new pool in her backyard and has done incredible landscaping and things to make everybody happy. How is that going to be? I mean, now she's going to have a business 3 doors down from her with concrete paving. I just don't see how that this can be a benefit. North Cherokee, going towards Monroe, all of the ranch houses, all of those have gone into businesses now. They're heating and air or different things. Very few families are living there. A lot of the older homes have been torn down within the last 10 or 15 years. The Muse is closed. What's going to happen to that property? The part in front of Piedmont Healthcare, in front of the old Muse, that building is kind of dilapidated looking. I don't know what's the situation with that. But there are other places that people could be putting businesses. So I just really can't, I just don't understand. And I understand that we're close to the downtown, but I was on the committee back in 1990 for the 30, 40-year plan, which is already zoomed by, but, I just don't
5
see.
minutes remaining.
Okay, and I wanna give the other people time. I just don't see how that this would benefit Social Circle and help us stay as a great little town, cause, you know, I understand economics and people wanna do things, but this is speculation, and the word developer in a residential area is kind of a scary concept when you hear about wanting to put 3 businesses in, and that's kind of a lot for one small building. Thank you.
Next, we have Michelle Lemons.
Y'all have to excuse me because I'm new to the city and I've never done this before. But I am the neighbor, 144 West Hightower. We moved here about 3 years ago with the understanding that it was strictly residence. There's been a lot of money put into the house. We've put money into it since we've purchased it. We've known, since we've been living there, 3 to 4 tenants that have lived there that tried to purchase the property so that it could remain residential, but the owner would not allow them to purchase it because they wanted to do stuff to it because of the drainage problem and the mold that it was causing inside. That's why all the tenants had to move out. So there is a major drainage issue that definitely needs to be addressed. But with us just moving here 3 years ago, I mean, I just really don't want to live next to a paved parking lot. And she needs to attempt to get tenants in there and let it be residential before, you know, even attempting to make it a business. And she supposedly, from my understanding, owns the property at the corner of Annie P, and she's gonna make that into some kind of restaurant, so forth. Why can't she put those offices there? Why is she trying to ruin, you know, our residential area? Let's see. There's so many empty buildings downtown. And from my understanding, the city's purchased 3 of them to redo them so that people can put businesses in them. You know, why not have that downtown instead of putting it right next door to me, you know, in a residence? I'm concerned of what it's gonna do, you know, as far as our home. I'm concerned about the property value, the tax value, the congestion. And Clark Street is only a one-way street, so it would mean they would have to enter from West Hightower. That would mean people would probably be parking out in front of my house and the neighbor's house. I know there's already a parking issue there because the last tenants that lived there tend to park on the sidewalk, and that was an issue because they didn't have enough parking there.
2 minutes.
All right. I do think that's all that I have. I'm just very concerned because, like I said, I'm next door and I really don't want to see or live next to a commercial business.
Thank you. We have a minute, what your show, mine shows a minute 34 remaining. We've got,
Yeah.
Macon Ogletree.
Yeah, so I'm just reiterate what they've already said, basically, stuff, because I have seen, you know, many places. I grew up in Lawrenceville, where I grew up originally. But I had friends came down here the other day and talked about how Lawrenceville's changed. There's no historic homes much left anymore. Everybody's torn them down and stuff, putting businesses and stuff. Where Social Circle, they enjoy coming down here because they know the residential area. They enjoy walking up and down, you know, seeing the houses and stuff. Just enjoy the character of our town. And I think that'd be a detriment to have a business right there in the middle of the residential area. Thank you.
There's no other speakers. There's no other speakers signed up and against. Ms. Smith, you got 7 minutes for rebuttal, should you? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. After I close the public hearing, I'd like to say, Ms. Lemons, I'd like to say thank you. You've done a wonderful job with your house and yard. It looks really good. I have noticed that, and I see you and your husband, I guess, sitting out front quite often, so it's quite nice. What's that? Yeah, you can put that on record. Yeah, it looks really nice. Planning Commission members, your thoughts? Ashley, can you put the zoning map back up when you get a chance?
I would like for it to remain residential.
Yeah.
Also. 'Cause that's a little tight spot. Although the school probably will be moving, you never know what might come in beside there, but that's a one-way street.
Right.
And
I think maybe it's a little premature.
I'd like to see a plan.
I would
A
too.
site plan, minimum, just a rough site plan of where the parking's gonna go, how you're fixing the drainage, where the sewer easements are. There's no plan here.
I agree. I asked Ashley to pull up the zoning map because I'm looking at it, and I would think that if the two yellow parcels, the R15, that are to the east of this, and that includes Miss Lemon's property and the property next in between her and Pump and Go, if all three of them were here requesting the same request, and they had a plan of development of that, that would make a lot of sense to me, to my eyes. That's just me. Trying to introduce commercial at this location, while I understand the future land use map is consistent with the request, trying to introduce commercial at this location on this small a scale even gives me pause because of the externalities that were identified, the traffic, the drainage, the uncertainty of parking. There's no real plan. And then if, like I said earlier, the applicant dives into it and sees that the return on investment is not there to make this single-family house a commercial business location with building code requirements, separation requirements, ADA, then that puts that person, that potential property owner at a disadvantage, because then they could rent it as a single-family detached with, that's what it was built for, single-family detached. So I personally find it hard to try to make that connection for the rezoning, and I understand those who spoke against, I understand their concerns. I share some of those concerns as well. That's just my thoughts. Mr. Mullins?
I'm thinking along the same lines with the parking, drainage, the areas doesn't quite fit for me.
Well, no other discussion. The chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we deny right now until they bring more information and a plan showing that they've taken care of a lot of the issues that's going on, if possible, because we never know, someone might just wanna rent it.
Okay. So there's a motion. Go ahead.
I want to make it clear, this is a motion to deny, not to table.
That's correct.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor to deny the requested rezoning, or recommend denial of the requested rezoning. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second. All those in favor signify, or all those in favor of the recommendation to deny the rezoning request, please signify by raising your hand. That motion passes unanimous. Thank you so much. And last item is a request for rezoning at 853 Hightower Trail. This is request to rezone from business to light industrial. Ashley, would you introduce this item and carry us through it, please?
Absolutely. So this request is more of a matter of trying to move around some property lines. So if you look on your screens here, this I know it's kind of small to see. This tract 1A here, that is all that's being requested to rezone. So the rezone request is just for this small tract here, because all the rest of this is zoned light industrial. So instead of them doing 2 surveys to move this property line up here and to combine these 2 parcels, they're doing 1 survey for all of this recombination. So the only thing that's on the docket here is rezoning this little parcel here, and it's shown in all of your maps as well, to light industrial instead of business.
It's the same property owner?
It's all the same property owner, and they're trying to actually clean up the property lines here. So they're moving this property line so this parking lot gets included with the building that's utilized in that parking lot.
Okay.
And this is getting combined, so some of the driveway, I believe, can all kind of stay together.
So it's, the parcel combination is what triggered the rezoning request?
Correct. So we can't approve combinations like this that would create a split zone lot.
Okay.
So they had to come and get this rezoned before we can stamp the plat and say, okay, you're good to change these property lines around.
Okay.
It's approximately 2.3 acres of land, and they would be combined to allow for the quitclaim deeding of the adjacent parking lot. For insurance purposes. And to point out something in staff analysis, one thing that we look at when we look at rezones is consistency, and this is in conformity with the future land use plan for the industrial character area. The use is all aligned with what these properties are being used for in light industrial. So that is something that is allowable within that light industrial zoning designation.
Thank you for clarifying that. If it's approved, it would not create a non-conforming situation.
Correct. We the applicants, when we had a pre-application meeting, that was something that we discussed at length, was if that use was allowable, and it is. So staff recommends approval of this request to rezone from business to light industrial.
Great, thank you. Any questions of Ashley at this time?
Is this the Annie P. Henderson building? Sanders Properties, the brown brick building?
Yes.
At this time, is Sarah Gregory or Tara Barton here?
Yes.
Okay. You're the applicants, right?
Yes.
And Ashley said everything that we would say, pretty much. We just want our property lines to include our parking lot, and on both sides we're moving, but that side was just not the same zoning, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've got 9 minutes and 49 seconds for rebuttal. That was a very quick presentation.
Yeah, we just hope it can be light industrial.
Sure.
We'll use it the same way. We don't even really plan on doing any kind of property. We're not building or anything, so
What do you-
nothing's changing.
What do y'all use the building for?
It's an event hall, and it's used for different events throughout. I mean, whoever would request an event to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
We do not have any, we have Sarah Gregory signed up to speak for, but I think that's quite all right. And then no one signed up to speak against. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. Ashley, this was a pretty straightforward request, looks like, since it's consistent with the future land use, consistent with zoning around it, and it's not creating a nonconformity. Thank you.
It has a plan?
Yeah, there is a plan in place. That's correct. Any other discussions? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
I recommend we pass it.
Okay, have a motion and a second to recommend to the mayor and council to rezone the subject property. No other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you so much. All right. Let me turn back this packet so I can get my,
It gets lengthier and lengthier.
yeah,
Sorry.
I've lost my, here we go. I've lost my,
Overall agenda.
so we've successfully gone through the three public hearing items. Do we have any new business to consider?
There will be another meeting in June. We do have one case on that. It's a variance. So just a reminder, that we have a meeting in June.
Nothing else? Thank you so much. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those signify by raising your hand. Thank you so much. Meeting's adjourned.